Although I now have a totally different definition of what a proper family is, I was born into what you may call one. My parents were the type of folks that governed their life by a strict code of decency. Every phrase, gesture, and outfit selection had to adhere to their strict guidelines for what they referred to as decent behavior. Emma, my sister, was the ideal child for them. She had perfected their game, dating the right boys from the right families, dressing appropriately, and saying the right things all the time. She would assist plan their church meetings, not in agreement with all of Mom and Dad's viewpoints, and generally be the daughter they had always hoped for. I was able to see through it all rather quickly. My parents were the main performers in the play of their lives, and our home was like a stage. In public, they were these honorable community leaders. Mom with her well-chosen church attire, and Dad with his well-tied tie. They would make sure that everyone witnessed them attending every community function and making donations to all the appropriate charity. However, the masks would be removed as soon as their audience departed. In private, I would refer to our living room as the gossip chamber. The real performance would start when Mom's friends came around for coffee. Did you see what the Hendersons were wearing to church? Mom would begin, stirring her coffee with a contempt that was well honed. In such shorts, their daughter is jogging about. That family has to be taught the value of humility. Dad wasn't much more favorable. He would participate by making remarks about people's occupations, vehicles, and homes, always with that faintly critical undertone cloaked in phony worry. It's awful that Bill Johnson is attempting to maintain appearances with that new vehicle. Everyone is aware of his company's difficulties. However, my dad's sister, Aunt Claire, was the main object of their criticism. I adored her because she was everything they weren't. She lived her life on her own terms, worked as an actor, and achieved real success in musicals and on theatrical stages. It was like someone had finally opened a window in our stuffy house to allow in color and fresh air when she came to visit. When Aunt Claire came to visit, she always brought thoughtful presents that demonstrated that she truly cared about what others enjoyed. Mom and Dad would greet them with their rehearsed grins and polite thank yous. But as soon as her car pulled out of our driveway, the truth would come out. Can you believe she's still dating around at her age? Mom would use her fingers to make air quotes. That is what it means to live in sin. No spouse, no kids. What sort of life does a lady lead like that? And these gifts. Dad would interrupt, displaying whatever beautiful item Aunt Claire had sent. You'd think she could buy something better with all that theatrical cash. However, she's too preoccupied with treating herself. They would constantly talk about how much money she must be making from her performances, how she chose her work above her family, how she could buy luxury clothes yet brought cheap gifts, and how she was setting a poor example. It seemed as though they had a list of complaints ready to be thrown out the door as soon as she departed. Everything changed when I was 7 years old. At our house, it was just another ordinary afternoon. Mom was having her gossip group around for her monthly tea. I heard them discussing Aunt Claire once more while I was pretending to be out of earshot, playing with my dolls in the living room corner. Mom remarked, "She's nothing but a loose woman," in the low voice she used to say her meanest things. Her buddies all gave her a knowing nod, making little, startled noises as they obviously relished the occasion. Perplexed by their comments, I sat there with my doll frozen in my hands. This was the first time I had heard them refer about Aunt Claire in this way. I couldn't understand why that affected me, but the way they said it sounded terrible. I waited until we were alone in the kitchen for weeks before Aunt Claire returned for her next visit. As usual, she was assisting me in getting to the cookie container on the upper shelf. I murmured, fumbling with my cookie, "Aunt Claire, a loose woman, what is she?" When you're not around, Mom and her friends call you that. She almost let the cookie jar slide out of her grasp. Her hands were trembling, but she put it down carefully. She displayed a range of emotions simultaneously, including shock, hurt, and finally a look of sheer rage that I had never seen in her. She said, "Jessie, honey, you stay right here." My parents were seated in the living room when she strode in. Silently, I followed and observed from the doorway. "I've put up with a lot from you too," she said, her voice trembling. "I've ignored the snide comments, the judgments, the constant criticism of my life choices. But this, calling me names behind my back, how dare you?" Mom started to say something, but Aunt Claire cut her off. "Don't bother denying it. I've heard about the things you say when I'm not here. You two are nothing but selfish hypocrites. You smile to my face, take my gifts, and then trash me the moment I leave. I'm done with your two-faced behavior. Done with your gossip, done with all of it." She walked out that day and never came back. The door slammed so hard, the family photos rattled on the walls. Years passed. My sister Emma married right after high school to Jason, the son of Mom and Dad's best friends. It was exactly the kind of proper, respectable marriage my parents loved. They started pushing me down the same path. Before my senior year even started, "We found the perfect boy for you," Mom announced one evening. "Richard Thompson. You remember the Thompsons, right? Such a respectable family." "But I want to go to college," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've been researching programs." "College?" Dad scoffed. "What for?" "Richard is going to take over his father's business. He needs a supportive wife, not some career woman." They arranged a meeting. Of course, Richard turned out to be exactly what I expected. Perfectly proper, perfectly boring, and perfectly wrong for me. But I saw the look in my parents' eyes and knew they wouldn't let this go. So I smiled and agreed to date him, all while secretly applying for college scholarships. Graduation day started like a dream. I'd made it, top of my class, scholarship secured, though my parents didn't know that yet, and a whole future ahead of me. We had a party at Richard's house after the ceremony, with most of our class there. The music was loud, people were celebrating, and for once, everything felt perfect, until it wasn't. I went upstairs to use the bathroom and opened the wrong door. There was Richard in bed with my friend Kelly. My graduation cap slipped from my hands and hit the floor. The sound made them both look up. "Jess," Richard scrambled to cover himself. "This isn't." "I mean, save it," I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. "We're done." I walked out of that house and didn't look back. My phone started buzzing immediately. Richard's calls, Kelly's texts. But I ignored them all. I knew the real storm would hit when my parents found out. "What do you mean you broke up with Richard?" Maud shrieked the next morning. "Over one little mistake." Little mistake. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He was in bed with my friend. "These things happen," Dad said, like he was explaining something to a child. "Men have needs. A good wife learns to look the other way sometimes." "Are you seriously telling me to just accept that he cheated on me?" "The Thompsons are our closest friends," Mom hissed. "Do you want to bring shame to this family? You're airing our dirty laundry in public." That was it. Something in me snapped. "Shame? You want to talk about shame?" I laughed. "All you care about is what other people think. You sit here in your perfect house, judging everyone else, gossiping about them behind their backs. You're nothing but hypocrites." Mom stepped forward, her voice ice cold. "You will apologize to Richard. You will marry him, or we will disown you." I took a deep breath. This was it, the moment I'd been preparing for. "Actually, I won't," I said. "I got a full scholarship to State University. I'm leaving for college in August." The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's face went white. Dad's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "Get out," Dad roared. "If you want to throw away everything we've planned for you, then get out of this house. You're no daughter of mine." I walked up to my room, grabbed the bag I'd already packed just in case something like this happened, and walked out the front door. Behind me, I could hear Mom crying frantically and Dad slamming things around. My hands were shaking as I dialed Aunt Claire's number. I hadn't spoken to her in years, though I'd kept her number saved all this time. She answered on the third ring. "Hello." "Aunt Claire, it's Jessica." There was a pause, then her voice softened. "Jessie, sweetheart, what's wrong?" I told her everything: Richard's cheating, my parents' reaction, the scholarship, being kicked out. The words tumbled out between sobs. I hadn't even realized I was holding them back. "Where are you right now?" she asked when I finished. "Standing outside my parents' house." "Stay there. I'm coming to get you." True to her word, exactly 1 hour later, her red convertible pulled up to the curb. She jumped out and hugged me tight, not caring that my tears were staining her silk blouse. Aunt Claire's house in the neighboring town was exactly like her: bright, welcoming, and full of personality. Theater posters lined the walls, and comfortable furniture invited you to sit and stay a while. It was everything our sterile family home wasn't. "Make yourself at home," she said, showing me to the guest room. "This is your space now, for as long as you need it." That night, over cups of hot chocolate with extra marshmallows, I told her the whole story in detail. She listened without interrupting, only nodding occasionally. "You know what?" she said when I finished. "You remind me of myself at your age, standing up to them, choosing your own path. I'm proud of you, Jessie." "Really? You don't think I'm being selfish?" "Selfish?" she laughed. "Honey, living your life according to someone else's script, that's not being selfless. That's being a puppet. You need to write your own story." The weeks before college started were some of the best of my life. Aunt Claire helped me set up my laptop and taught me how to find freelance writing gigs online. "Everyone needs content these days," she said. "Might as well make some money while you wait for school to start." Between writing articles about everything from pet care to travel tips, we'd spend evenings watching old musicals or reading scripts together. She'd tell me stories about her theater days, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I could just be myself. When August came, Aunt Claire drove me to college herself. She helped me carry boxes up to my dorm room, arranged my desk just right, and made my bed with a new sheet she'd bought me. "Now remember," she said before leaving, "this is your adventure. Make it count." I threw myself into my business management classes, determined to make her proud. We talked almost every day. She wanted to hear everything about my classes, my roommates, my life, my parents, and Emma, radio silence, though Aunt Claire would sometimes mention things she'd heard through the grapevine. "Your sister had another baby," she told me during one of our weekly calls. "Her third. They named him Jason Jr." I just shook my head and changed the subject to my upcoming midterms. Emma had chosen her path, just like I'd chosen mine. Some days I wondered if she was truly happy playing the perfect daughter, wife, and mother, or if she ever wanted something more. After graduation, accepting the management position in Aunt Claire's city felt natural. We'd grown so close over the years that I couldn't imagine living anywhere else. The company was great, my career was taking off, and most importantly, I got to spend almost every weekend with Aunt Claire. We'd do Sunday brunches, where she'd tell me stories about her latest theater projects. She was directing community plays now, passing on her passion to a new generation. Sometimes we'd spend whole weekends binge-watching old movies or trying to recreate fancy recipes we'd seen on cooking shows. Then came the diagnosis, stage 4. She told me one Sunday morning, her hands wrapped around her coffee mug. They say I have a few months, maybe less. I moved in with her that day. Between work and taking care of her, the days blurred together. We made the most of every moment. She insisted on teaching me her secret recipes, told me stories about her youth, and made me promise to keep living boldly. She slipped away on a quiet Tuesday morning, holding my hand. The theater community showed up in force for her funeral. Actors, directors, students from her workshops. The church was packed with people whose lives she touched. But the 3 empty seats in the front row spoke volumes. My parents and sister hadn't come, even though I'd sent them the information. A week after the funeral, the notary called me to his office. "Your aunt was very specific about her wishes," he said, sliding documents across his desk. "The house, her land back in your hometown, and her savings, approximately $700,000. All of it goes to you." I sat there stunned, tears rolling down my cheeks. It was too much. All I wanted was my aunt back. That weekend, I started going through her things in her home office. Tucked away in a drawer, I found a bundle of letters, all addressed to my father. None of them had been sent. With trembling hands, I opened the most recent one. "Dear John, I know we haven't spoken in years. The doctors say I don't have much time left, and I find myself thinking about family, about reconciliation. Remember when we were kids, and you used to protect me from the neighborhood bullies. I miss my big brother. I know we've chosen different paths, lived different lives. Maybe we've both been too stubborn, but life is too short for pride, isn't it? I hope someday you can understand that I loved you all, even when we disagreed, even when it hurt. Your sister, Claire." The letter was dated just 2 weeks before she died. She never sent it, never got to make that final attempt at peace. I folded the letters carefully and put them back in the drawer. Dad hadn't even come to say goodbye to his own sister. He'd chosen his pride over family, one last time. Life has a way of moving forward, whether you're ready or not. 2 years after Aunt Cla's death, I was still living in her house, my house now, and throwing myself into my work. The promotion to senior manager came with a corner office and a salary that would have made my younger self's eyes pop. Then one day, my phone rang. Mom's number flashed on the screen, the first time I'd seen it in years. My hand hovered over the decline button, but something made me answer. "Jessica." Mom's voice sounded smaller than I remembered. We need to see you. Can you come?" I found myself driving back to my childhood home that weekend. The sight of it stopped me cold. The once pristine house was falling apart, paint peeling, gutter sagging. The perfect lawn now overgrown with weeds. This wasn't the showcase home I remembered. Inside was worse. The furniture was worn, the carpets threadbare, and there sat my family, Mom looking tired and gray. Dad with defeat written across his face, and Emma huddled on the couch with 3 kids clinging to her. Her eye was bruised, poorly hidden under makeup. Jason turned violent. Emma whispered, not meeting my eyes. I had nowhere else to go. The irony wasn't lost on me. Jason, the son of their perfect friends, the respectable match they'd arranged for Emma, had shown his true colors. "We were wrong," Jessica, Mom said, tears in her eyes. "About everything. About forcing you to be with Richard, about college, about you." Dad nodded, though it clearly pained him to admit it. "We shouldn't have tried to force either of you into those marriages. Look where our precious reputation got us. I can barely keep the lights on." They explained how Dad's business had failed, how their friends had abandoned them when times got tough, Hell, they couldn't even afford to fix the leaking roof. I wrote them a check for $10,000 right there for repairs. I said no strings attached. After that, I started visiting regularly, always bringing something: groceries, clothes for the kids, new appliances when the old ones broke down. My parents were grateful, perhaps truly. I tried not to question it too deeply. But one night, looking at Aunt Cla's photo on my mantel, I made a decision. The land she'd left me in my hometown was just sitting there, unused. I contacted an architect the next day. I need a house, I told her. Something big enough for a multi-generational family. 4 bedrooms minimum, plenty of play space for kids, a proper kitchen for family meals. The plans she drew up were perfect, a modern home with everything my family needed. I hired the construction crew that week, swearing them to secrecy. Every time I visited my parents, I could see the old house crumbling more, and I'd smile to myself, knowing what was being built just across town. As the new house took shape over the months, something else was taking shape too. A pattern I should have recognized sooner. What started as genuine gratitude from my parents slowly morphed into expectation, then entitlement. The first shift was subtle. Instead of thank yous for whatever I brought, I started getting comments like, "Oh, we were hoping for the other brand," or "We really needed something else instead." Then came the direct requests. Mom would call with shopping lists, not even bothering to phrase them as questions anymore. "We need a new washing machine. The one at Sears is on sale. Can you pick it up this weekend?" Dad joined in too. "Your sister's kids need new school clothes. The good stuff, not the cheap things from the discount store." The requests grew bigger, more frequent, more demanding. A new TV because the old one wasn't smart enough. A complete set of patio furniture because what will people think of our backyard? Kitchen renovations because the counters were embarrassingly outdated. Then came the call about their 35th wedding anniversary. They were planning a big celebration at Zone, the fanciest restaurant in town. All their old friends were invited, the ones who'd supposedly abandoned them in their time of need, but were now back in the picture. I thought it would be the perfect occasion to surprise them with the house. The construction was complete, the interior decorated, everything ready for them to move in. But a week before the party, Mom called. "Jessica," she said, not bothering with hello, "your father and I have been talking. For our anniversary, we need a new car. It's $6,000. Excuse me. I nearly dropped my coffee mug. "Well, we can't keep driving that old Toyota. What will people think? And you're doing so well now, surely you can afford it." "Mom, I already have a gift planned for you and Dad. What could be more important than this?" Her voice turned sharp. "We're your parents. We sacrificed everything for you. The least you can do is make sure we have a decent car." Zone was exactly the kind of place my parents loved. Crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths, perfect for showing off to their social circle. I walked in carrying the house documents in a silver gift envelope, my heart racing with anticipation despite the tension from Mom's recent demand. The celebration was already in full swing. I spotted them immediately. Mom, in a new dress, probably bought with my money. Dad, beaming at their gathered friends. Emma, sitting quietly with her children. The old crowd was all there, the same people who'd supposedly abandoned them during their hard times. Mom saw me first. Instead of the usual fake smile, her face hardened. She whispered something to Dad, who turned to look at me with equal disdain. Well, Mom's voice carried across the restaurant, deliberately loud enough for everyone to hear. "Look who decided to show up." I froze halfway to their table, suddenly aware that every eye in the place was on me. "Mom," I donned. "Mommy," she cut me off, standing up. How dare you come here after refusing to help your own parents? After we sacrificed everything for you? Dad joined in, his face red. We only asked for one thing, one simple thing, to make your mother happy on our anniversary. But you're too selfish, aren't you? Too busy counting your money to care about your family. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The room started spinning slightly. Is this how you raised your daughter? One of their friends asked, clearly enjoying the drama. She's no daughter of mine, Mom announced to the room. A real daughter would have bought her parents the car they needed. Instead, she comes here empty-handed to ruin our celebration. Empty-handed, I was able to find my voice at last. I was trembling when I took the packet out. You want to know why I didn't buy you that car? Mom snarled, we don't want to hear your excuses. Just go. You're making us seem foolish in front of our pals. I glanced around the room at their arrogant friends, my sister, who avoided eye contact, and my parents, who were more focused on maintaining their good name than anything else. I suddenly saw Aunt Class standing in our living room all those years ago, subjected to the same harshness and condemnation. With a calm and clear voice, I stated, I spent the last year building you a house. A lovely house with 5 bedrooms on Aunt Cla's property. Everyone has room, including you, Dad, Emma, and the children. I intended to give you a surprise today. Their faces lost their color. I can now see that Aunt Cla was correct about you too, even if Mom's jaw moved silently back and forth. Nothing has changed about you. You are the same self-centered, image-obsessed hypocrites who are more concerned with impressing your buddies than with being good people. I cautiously tore the envelope in two after holding it up. In the abrupt hush, the sound seemed to reverberate. My life and the house are now mine. I'm done attempting to purchase your affection. Jessica. Wait, Dad started. No, I interrupted him. I saw you use your harshness to push Aunt Clay away. Because you were more concerned with appearances than with our pleasure, I saw you attempt to drive Emma and me into unhappy marriages. And now because I refused to purchase you a fancy automobile, I've seen you try to publicly embarrass me. I'm done watching. The ripped envelope fell onto their table. Happy anniversary. I hope you stay warm at night because of your reputation. I ignored their cries behind me and marched out with my head held high. Before I even got to my car, my phone began to ring. Then Mom, Dad, Emma, and even their friends began to realize what they had lost, and the texts began to come in. They were all blocked by me. My parents were never seen again. From the grapevine, I occasionally learned of their house loss, Emma's struggles to raise her children alone, and their friends' repeated desertion when their finances ran out. However, those were no longer my stories.